Okay, so Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So welcome to you all, and today we are going to study this one of the chapters in the part called What is Dhamma, and we have seen various definitions of the Dhamma which has been given by Baba Sahib Ambedkar in this particular book, and we have covered chapters like to give up craving is Dhamma. We have covered chapters like various chapters of this book. To reach perfection in life is Dhamma, and so on and so forth. So today we are going to look at the chapter number 5, which is about to believe that all compound things are impermanent is Dhamma. So that is going to be our chapter today. And I think this chapter has got a relevance because the Buddha's teaching, the three characteristics of the existence are dukkha, anitya, and anatma. And here Baba Sahib Ambedkar is dealing with two important concepts of composite things, that all the things are compounded in the world. And he's dealing with the concept of impermanence. And he says very categorically that to believe that all compound things are impermanent is Dhamma. So one of the definitions of the Dhamma is to believe that all compound things are impermanent. So let's look at it, because the doctrine of impermanence or change is not easy to understand, because of everybody says that everything changes, but what does it entail? What do the Buddha mean by the doctrine of impermanence? So that this doctrine of impermanence has three aspects, and we are going to look at the three aspects of the doctrine of impermanence. So the number one aspect of the doctrine of impermanence is that there is the impermanence of the individual being. Oh, sorry. The first is that there is the impermanence of composite things. So what are the composite things? Like everything in the world is composite. Everything in the world is conditioned by so many factors. No element, if we use the traditional sort of a philosophical language, there was a kind of a quest to find out the prime substance, where the ancient philosopher believed that there must be some prime substance from which all other substances have emerged. So some of them claim that the water is the prime element, some of them claim that the air is the prime element, and some of them claim that fire is the prime element, and some of them claim that the earth is the prime element, and so on and so forth. So this quest for the prime elements went on, and then quintessence, the fifth element, that there is an element which is beyond this different elements. So there has been this quest to search for what is the prime substance from which everything has been created or made from. But the Buddha has a very, very different take on this. And the Buddhist take on this was that everything is compounded, everything is composite. There is nothing in the world which is not composite. Now, this brings us to a very important sort of conclusion that nothing can exist of its own. Even you look at the human life, it's the composite thing. It's made up of several elements, so many factors, so many causes, so many conditions, and so on and so forth. So you see these composite things, which in Buddhism called the sankharit, the sankhara, because sankhara is nothing but emerging together, created together, and like co-creation, we can say that it's dependent origination. We can say that in the traditional Buddhist language, paticca samutpad. So you see that the Buddha had this, one of the aspects of impermanence was that that there is the impermanence of composite things. And we are going to look into that as we go on. And the second aspect of the impermanence that Baba Ambedkar brought in here in the Buddha and Is Dhamma is that there is the impermanence of the individual being. So individual beings are also impermanent. We are not permanent beings. We are also impermanent. And we are also going to look at that as we go on today in our discussions and in our chapter. The third thing that is important in terms of the impermanence is the impermanence of the self nature of conditioned things. Okay, so you see there are like composite things and there are conditioned things. They are very much related to each other. The things are conditioned. For example, the rains. The rain arises due to the conditions of the cloud, conditions of temperature, and so on and so forth. Okay, the rain has no self nature. We cannot say that there is. We cannot say there is rain. We can only say it's raining. That's a proper Buddhist way of saying anything. There is a raining. We cannot say. There is. There is rain. We can say it rains. It rains, like it breathes. There is nobody who is breathing inside. There is nobody who is breathing. There is nobody wrong. It's walking. It's thinking. There is no thinker. Just the process of thinking goes on in our head. So there is not a person who is thinking. There is a kind of a condition of thinking going on. So on and so forth. So you see this conditioned things, because a lot of things arise due to conditions. And because they arise due to conditions, they do not have any self nature. So let's summarize these three ways by which Baba Ambedkar has tried to look at the doctrine of impermanence. The number one is impermanence of composite things, because things, if anything is composite, it has to be permanent. Second, individual beings are also impermanent. Thirdly, the self nature of conditioned things is also impermanent. So these are the three aspects of impermanence that has been brought by Baba Ambedkar in this particular chapter of the Buddha and Is Dhamma. Now, the impermanence of composite thing has been well explained by the great Buddhist philosopher Asanga. So Asanga was from what is called the present day state of present day region of Gandhara, and his brother Vasubandhu and Asanga, they played a very important role in preaching, spreading Buddhism, not only in that part of the world, but throughout India as well, because they were very intellectual people. They were, now it's called, they were Pathans, but very brilliant sort of the people. And they have developed a lot of ideas of Baba Ambedkar into more sort of, philosophical schools. And that is the reason why it's very important for us to sometimes reflect on the philosophies expounded and elaborated by the Buddhist philosophers. And there are many Buddhist philosophers around us. Like there is Nagarjuna, there is Dignaga, there is Dharmakirti, there is of course Asanga, there is Vasubandhu, and there is Dharmarakshit and whatnot. There are a lot of Buddhist philosophers, and Baba Ambedkar is of course one of the leading Buddhist philosophers of our times. And not only philosophizing they were also trying to communicate the teachings of the Buddha, which are communicable to that type of time of history. And therefore, I think this fifth statement, the fifth verse of the Buddhism, the impermanence of composite things, has been well explained by the great Buddhist philosopher Asanga. So Baba Ambedkar described Asanga as the great Buddhist philosopher. He will be somebody who will not talk of anybody as great unless he has realized their greatness. And of course, Baba Ambedkar was well read in the philosophies of Asanga, and he was well read in the philosophies of Vasubandhu, and so on and so forth, because that time abundant material was available at the time of Baba Ambedkar. And today even also we can see in his collections the various books that are there on Buddhism. So what does Asanga say about this? So what Asanga says, and let's pay close attention to what Asanga says. All things, says Asanga, are produced by the combination of causes and conditions, and have no independent noumena of their own. When the combination is dissolved, their destruction ensues. Now see, there are causes and conditions. We have to understand these two terms very well. Hetu Pachaya. We have to understand these terms very well. So causes means, for example, there is a sprout. There is a sprout. There is a seed that we plant in the earth, and with that seed as a cause, the sprout shoots up. When the sprout shoots up and forms a shoot, then shoot as a condition, a cause, the leaves and other things emerge. So it's like one thing leading to another. One thing is causing another. This is called cause. But the condition is a very different phenomena. Condition is like this: as earth as the condition, then only the seeds can sprout. Water as a condition, then only it can turn into the plant. With light as a condition. So you see, the causes and conditions are two different aspects. Hetu Pachaya. It's not that one leading to another, but also there has to be presence of conditions. Without the presence of those conditions, nothing can exist. So you see, all things, there is nothing in the world which is not produced by the combination of causes and conditions. There are several causes and there are several conditions. For example, how do we come into existence? How the composite of us come into existence? This composite of what is the Buddha called Nama Rupa. So of course we know the process of man and women coming together, and then fertilization, and with that as a condition, as a cause, this one thing leads to another. It's a cycle. Same ways, there are also conditions. If, for example, if the condition on the earth was not suited for the emergence of life, there would be no life. If tomorrow the climate changes drastically, the conditions for the human survival changes. So, nothing can exist. Earth is a planet where there is a suitable condition for the life to exist. So you see how deep is this concept of the compound things. Let me read it again, as Asanga says, and I think it's very interesting. All things, says Asanga, are produced by the combination of causes and conditions and have no independent noumena of their own. Noumena means, the inner reality, the inner substance. Phenomena is what we see outside. Okay. So noumena is about inside, and phenomenon is about outside conditions, like worldly conditions. All things, says Asanga, are produced by the combination of causes and conditions. Not only just one cause, but there are several causes and conditions. Not only one condition, there are many conditions, and have no independent noumena of their own. So no composite thing. For example, if I say this pen, there is nothing exists inside this as a pen. It's all composite. There is a steel, there is a fiber, there is a refill, there are springs, and so on and so forth. So that's what we call it pen. It has nothing called pen as the independent noumena of its own. There is nothing like pen in this. The pen is just a kind of a designation. It's a sort of note, I would say, notation in the language to make things very easy for us. Same with the human body. If we analyze the human body, we won't find any reality of its own. It's all, there is nothing that we cherish as a self. So let me read it again, the verse number 6. All things, says Asanga, are produced by the combination of causes and conditions and have no independent noumena of their own. When the combination is dissolved, their destruction ensures. The verse number 7 goes like this. The body of living beings consists of the combination of four great elements. Four great elements, of course, called Mahabhuta, because they are deceptive. That's why they are called Bhutas. They are Adbhut. They arise. And the body of a living being consists of the combination of four great elements: Vais, Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu. That's what we call in Pali. In English, we call them earth, water, fire, and air. Now, we don't have to take this literally, because the earth means the quality of solidity. the water is the quality of liquidity, and the fire is of course the quality of energy, and of course air, we know that the quality of freedom to move. And these beautiful things, these elements are very beautifully defined in the symbolism of stupa, where the stupa, there is what is called there is a cube, on the cube the spear, and on the spear there is a pyramid, and on the pyramid there is a small saucer like shape, and there is a small dot. If we see the traditional stupa symbolism, and we see, even behind me you can see that's stupa symbolism, which represents the enlightened mind of the Buddha. So you see, without understanding this, we cannot understand what are the composite things, what is the nature of the composite things. So see, the body of a living being consists of combination of four great elements: wise, earth, water, fire, and air. And when this combination is resolved into four component elements, dissolution ensues. Very simple. Ensues. Very simple and very clear. So because the things are made up of composites of something, those components fall apart, the thing falls apart. It doesn't exist anymore. So this is what is called the impermanence of a composite entity. So that's the first aspect of the doctrine of impermanence. The second aspect of the doctrine of impermanence, verse number 9, goes like this. Impermanence of the living individual is best described by the formula being is becoming. See, we all the time we say human being, but human being is not fixed in time and place. We change. We are always becoming. So to be is to become. There cannot be a state called only to be. It cannot exist. All beings are becoming all the time. We are becoming something. We are transforming. We are changing. We are never the same. We can never be the same. And that is what the Buddha is trying to tell here, that we can never be the same. And that's why when we go further and look at this verse number 10, and I think this is of the paramount importance as to what does the Buddha mean by this being is becoming. And I think in the philosophical tradition, this discussion goes on between being and becoming. And of course, Buddhism is being the process philosophy. It's not a substance philosophy, because to be is to hold, to have some substantiality. But to become is a process, it's a continuous process. It's continuous arising. It's a continuous production. It's a continuous destruction at the same time. It's a continuous rise and it's a continuous fall. And rise and fall are inbuilt. That's how deep is this doctrine of being is becoming. So what does the verse number 10 says? In this sense, a being of a past movement has lived, but does not live, nor will he live. So for example, now if you say Mangesh of the past, so that moment has gone. So that person has already, that moment has gone, that person has already lived. And that being does not live, nor will he live. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is very important and interesting, is in this sense, a being of a past moment has lived, but does not live, nor will he live. The being of a future moment will live, but has not lived, nor does he live. The being of the present moment does live, but has not lived and will not live. It's like this. It's like Atita means gone, Anagata means not yet arisen, and Pachupanna emerging now. So a thing can only exist in that moment of time, but even that moment of time passes. So now we are entering into a domain of time. What is time according to Buddhism? So according to Buddhism, the time itself is the construction of mind. The Kal is the construction of mind, and we cannot see the beginning and end of the time. So what we call past, present, and future, the Nagarjuna will say that it's all about, our own mental construction. The time is also mental construct, because we cannot exist. We have already existed. We exist and we will exist. Let's read it again. In this sense, a being of a past moment has lived but does not live, nor will he live. The being of a future moment will live but has not lived, nor does he live. The being of the present moment does not live but has not lived and will not live. In short, a human being is always changing, always growing. He is not the same at two different moments of his life. That is the implication of it, that the human being is always changing, always growing. He is not the same at two different moments of his life. And I think this is something that is not now difficult to understand, because the past is gone. The past is not the reality. The future has not yet come. It is just an idea. Only in the present moment we can experience life. But the present moment become past moment so easily, and the future comes so suddenly that we cannot talk in terms of the past, present, and future. That's why, according to Buddhism, the reality is timeless. Only our mind constructs the sense of time, that there was a past, there will be future. But it's all causes and conditions arising all the time. And when the causes and condition passes away, the things pass away. The third phase of the doctrine of impermanence is somewhat difficult for a common man to follow. To realize that every living being will die sometime or other is a very easy matter to understand. Everybody says that we are going to die. Everybody dies, everything perishes. But it is not quite so easy to understand how a human being can go on changing, becoming while he is alive. So one of the aspects of the doctrine of change is the doctrine of becoming. How is this possible? The Buddha's answer was that this is possible because all is impermanent. So everything changes because of the fact of impermanence. This later on gave rise to what is called Shunyavad. The Buddhist Shunyata does not mean nihilism out and out. It only means the perpetual changes occurring at every moment in the phenomenal world. So the world is changing from moment to moment. Even to call it moment to moment change is not the way the Buddha will look at, because even the moment cannot be split into past, present, and future. Even any historical time cannot be split into past, present, and future. Just like we say minutes and all, we cannot split it forever. 1 minute, then million second, what not, nanosecond, and so on and so forth. What is this basic unit of time? What is it that we call time? Okay, so there are these very conceptually well defined sort of the arguments laid out by the Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna in his philosophy about time, a philosophy about space, and so on and so forth. And we got to study such philosophers. The Buddhist Shunyata does not mean nihilism. It doesn't mean nihilism, because the nihilism and eternalism has no scope in Buddhism, because everything is transforming continuously. It cannot stay static. There won't be anything eternal in the world. There is no outright nihilism in the world. Therefore, the doctrine of middle path is so deep. The teaching of the middle path is so deep and profound, and that is what we need to understand here today. Very few realize that it is on account of Shunyata that everything becomes possible. Without it, nothing in the world would be possible. It is on the impermanence of the nature of all things that the possibility of other things depend. You see, this statement is so profound. It is on the impermanence nature of all things, because all things are impermanent, that the possibility of other things depends. If there was one thing independent in the world, in the universe, the possibility of other things cannot come into existence. Everything has to be impermanent. Nothing in the world can be permanent. That is the meaning of it. Anything, any one single thing permanent will not let this universe to, it will lead universe to collapse. And that those concepts of collapse and all won't exist, because if something exists that never changes, then you still look at it. If things were not subject to continual change but were permanent and unchangeable, the evolution of all life from one kind to the other and the development of living things would come to a dead stop. Evolution is possible. We evolved. We are what we are because of the simple doctrine of impermanence. without which nothing would be possible. Nothing would come into existence. If human beings died or changed, but had continued always in the same state, what would the results have been? The progress of the human race would have come to a dead halt. Immense difficulty would have arisen if Shunya is regarded as being void or empty. So Shunya is not void or empty. We say emptiness, but no, it's not. But this is not so. Shunya is like a point which has substance, but neither breadth nor length. You know, we define it with the breadth and length. We try to define it with breadth and length, but it's not like that. All things are impermanent was a doctrine preached by the Buddha. What is the moral of this doctrine of the Buddha? Interestingly, this is a much more important question. The moral of this doctrine of impermanence is simple. Do not be attached to anything. There is nothing, therefore, which we try to take hold of. We cannot be attached to anything. It is to cultivate detachment from property, detachment from friends, etc. That is said, all these are impermanent. You see, so here Baba Ambedkar is talking about the very fundamental sort of the reality here. And the reality of impermanence is not easy to understand. We cannot say that everything gets destroyed. We cannot say that everything changes just like that. Everything dies, we die. But what is the reason of it? Why do we die? What happens? Can there be life without death? You know, if the individual beings don't die, will there be the public common life? So life, not the individual life, cannot exist if the individual beings don't die. That is the profundity of the statement. So life, we have to talk about life. We have to talk about the life in general, not just about our life, individual life. And that's why the Buddha says that cherish all life. It's so profound. But if we make that life our individually own, then a lot of difficulties arise because we are trying to make something which doesn't belong to us as belonging to us. So this chapter, I think, is very profound, and there is a lot to discuss about it, and there is a lot to talk about it. But to my mind, that Baba Ambedkar introducing this in the definition of the Dhamma, and then going back to the philosophers like Asanga, and then going back to Shunyata, shows the profundity of understanding the reality of the world, to be able to see the world as it is, to be able to explore, to be able to understand impermanence as it would be, as it is. And impermanence is the fact of life. Though we all know that it's a fact of life, we don't know the deeper meaning of this particular word. So what I was thinking, I think I have not upgraded our Zoom, and it will vanish in a few minutes, I think less than a minute. If it does that, we will relog in and we will have a question and answer session. Is that okay for you all?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll relog in and we will come back for a question and answer session. You be ready with your question and answers.